Well, while Greece and the EU remain in crisis and after massive demonstrations in Spain last weekend, there's been more protests in America too by the Occupy movement against big business. A day of global action has been taking place across the US, with organizers claiming countries around the world are rising up in opposition to austerity and corporate greed. For more, we're joined live from California by Jayel Aheram, a former US Marine and Iraq War veteran who's now an anti-war activist and blogger. Thank you for joining us, Jayel. Now, some say this could be crunch time for the Occupy movement, either heralding the start of a spring awakening or offering final proof that it's died out. How big are the protests in the US and how are the authorities reacting?
Well, the protests all across the United States has been unprecedented, continuing from their success last fall, with the recent May Day protests. I mean, if you think about it, there hasn't been a significant May Day protest in the United States for quite some time now. In fact, it's been forgotten in the United States for over a century. So the fact that there were significant protests in Los Angeles, in New York, and all across the country, taking part in this, and all these varied coalition coming together. I was with the Occupy Los Angeles out here, taking part, and it was massive. As for the authorities, how they're responding, there were 9 helicopters hovering over Pershing Square in Los Angeles. And it seems to me that the police or the governments or local governments are taking this very seriously. Whether or not they do think that the Occupy Wall Street movement is a threat domestically, I do not know. But the fact of the matter is they're spending considerable resources to watch over a bunch of protesters.
Now, as you just said there, that domestically the movement is growing. Now, we know that it's also growing globally. Do you think we'll soon witness a political revolution, or do you think the Arab Spring scenario is possible in the West?
Maybe not quite Arab Spring. I hope not, because to me, when I think about the Arab Spring, I think violence from the state. Crushing, as we can see in Bahrain, we can see in Libya, we can see in Egypt. The police has been there were deaths. So far we've been lucky so far that in New York City, in Los Angeles, and even the small occupations like Riverside or Redlands or San Francisco, Berkeley, in the college campuses, there hadn't been deaths or actual casualties. There has been injuries with Steve Olson in Occupy Oakland, but there hasn't been any deaths. And I'm really hoping that this movement kind of remains that at least somewhat nonviolent, not fatal. And honestly, for Occupy Wall Street, I'm just hoping it does become a significant social revolution.
Now, Jayel, let me just interrupt you there. I mean, we're talking about the movement in terms of domestically in the US and globally. How effective is this? I mean, looking from your side and looking what Europe is doing, how effective is the movement at the moment? Very
effective. Whatever, yeah. We just have to look at the facts here. The Wall Street movement has galvanized a generation of activists, not just, they are not really beholden to one party or another. The Occupy Wall Street movement is less Tea Party and more kind of Ron Paul revolution in the way they operate. Meaning, they're not really controlled by a central or establishment figure or even just establishment, and they get to do whatever they want and have different kind of focuses. For example, May Day. That's just, that's radical. The fact that people are celebrating it somehow. The Haymarket massacres. That's radical in of itself, and that's, to me, it shows how effective this movement has been in this country and around the world. There's Occupy London, there's France and all these other, except for Greece. I don't think while the sentiments might be the same, anti-austerity, I don't really consider Greece to be an extension of the Occupy movement.
Okay, let's leave it right there. Thank you so much, Jayel Aheram, anti-war activist and blogger, joining us live from California.